Greetings YouTube, this is Remarkable Republican back once again to bring you the truth with a truth-flavored bias. Today we're tackling Joker, the controversial new film from DC. This film was controversial simply because it committed the unpardonable sin of being conservative in liberal Hollywood. I will show how this film is actually quite conservative, but perhaps not as good of a movie as it could have been. Let us begin our official movie review of the Joker. For the benefit of those of you watching long after this movie's release, I will summarize the pre-release controversy that swept America. The media released mass warnings about how this film would inspire mass shootings. The reason for the fear-mongering from the fake media is clearly that the script was leaked and the media knew that it had a conservative message, and they didn't want those messages to get out to the public because they knew that people would enjoy those messages and they'd be more likely to re-elect Trump. The fake news media led by CNN, the Clinton News Network, of course hates our president Donald Trump and will go to any lengths to slow him down or strike a blow. And this fear-mongering, which even required many communities to deploy the police to the theaters for no reason, and thus costing people money, yes, this was why the controversy happened. CNN didn't want Trump to have another term. Joker, however, ended up becoming a massive box office success, and because this message has now leaked out to millions and millions of people, Trump's chances of success for 2020 have greatly and exponentially increased. I have seen and heard a few soft-headed reviewers argue whether this movie is left or right. Some of these same people are still debating about the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. I don't know why. Anyway, if anyone thinks this movie is left or liberal in any way, they are literally retarded, because there is no possible way that a normal person who is living in the 21st century could possibly think that Joker is in any way a liberal or leftist film. The events of the movie argue, and with great eloquence, that the cause of shootings is not guns, but rather mental health. Arthur Fleck did not shoot the people he shot because he had a gun. He shot them because he was unwell. A healthy person with a gun would not have done the things that he did, and that is extraordinarily clear from all of the scenes. Also, once he commits murder, he continues to do so with or without his gun. At one point he kills someone with a pair of scissors, and that was actually probably the coolest scene in terms of action. Joker is portrayed as a nihilist who acts as a left-wing demagogue to fire up a left-wing populist movement, which then threatens the lives and property of decent people. Again, how that could be leftist, showing the left in an extremely negative light, is not apparent to me, at least. Nihilism is more or less leftist, since it generally comes from being an atheist, which is also a leftist position. Left-wing demagoguery of the type you see with Occupy Wall Street is shown in this movie. Clearly, they're not portrayed in a very positive light. They're cheering for the deaths of people who simply happen to be hardworking and to have gotten ahead in life. So these are some pretty degenerate people calling for the deaths of billionaires. The movie is effectively a reimagining of Fight Club from 1999. So this is effectively a 20-year anniversary edition of Fight Club in some ways, except that Arthur Fleck, the Joker character, is Brad Pitt's character, and then the Joker, the alternate ego, is Tyler Durden, the Edward Norton character. Another indication that we have that this film is indeed a conservative film is that the Joker is portrayed as a bisexual, and it is very clear from the proceedings of the movie that his bisexualism contributes in no small part to his mental breakdown. His relationship with his mother has some serious edible qualities. He waits on her hand and foot, he dotes on her, she dotes back on him, and he lays in the bed with her to watch TV at night. It's all very strange, and as we'll see, one of the people that they watch all the time is Murray Franklin, and the way that the shots are set up and the way that we see their faces light up when they hear Murray make jokes makes it clear that both of them have an attraction to the same man. So there's a lot of layers of stuff going on there. At one point, Arthur has an imagined romance with his neighbor, a black lady, and this is an homage to how Brad Pitt imagined Edward Norton by his side throughout Fight Club. When we see the minimal intimacy between the couple, what that shows us is that Arthur has conflicted emotions about whether he is more into men or women. And that's probably why at his age he appears to be perhaps around 40-ish in the movie. He is still living with his mother and single. Arthur clearly also has a sort of attraction to both Thomas Wayne and Murray Franklin, especially the latter. There's a little bit of a desire for a father figure, but there is also a clear homosexual element to the nature of their relationship. As I mentioned, if we look at how he watched Murray Franklin while laying in bed, that's one sign. When he interacts with Murray Franklin, that's another. And when he met with Thomas Wayne, he confronted him in a bathroom while Thomas Wayne was draining his lizard. And that in itself is rather questionable at best. This conflict of his sexuality was contributing to his mental problems, and then getting rejected by all four of his romantic interests. His mother betrayed him in a sense, his girlfriend turned out to be fake, and then both of the men who he admired and had a big crush on rejected him in different ways. Thomas Wayne denied being his father and then punched him in the face, and Murray Franklin made fun of his stand-up and, really just embarrassed him and hurt his feelings. So all of this rejection romantically triggered the transformation of Arthur Fleck into Joker. And what this shows is that he could have had all of his mental illnesses taken care of in a society which put more emphasis on mental health and less emphasis on trying to contain guns or whatever, things that aren't actually the problem. Not only that, but it does show the old conservative position that yes, homosexuality or bisexualism is in fact a mental illness. So far, so good. In terms of messaging, Joker is one of the best films I've seen, period. When it comes to its popcorn quality, or how enjoyable is it to watch, Joker runs into a few problems, however. The movie's a little slow-paced, and in places such as the beginning when he gets beat up by the kids, it's pretty boring. It's not really clear where we're going or why we should care. It picks up, of course, but it takes a while. The action, while I guess you could call it gritty or realistic or whatever you want to call it, is just not on par with any of the main Batman films. Something like Batman Forever or The Dark Knight had much better fight scenes, and I think that's kind of a problem since whenever we think of the Joker, we always think of intense fight scenes, and we didn't really get too many here. The dialogue is also a little awkward in places. We normally think of the Joker as being very well spoken and always having a quip at hand, but Arthur Fleck comes off as being on the spectrum, and while I think that totally losing his sanity by the end would make him speak more eloquently since all of his reservations would go out the window, so I can see how he transforms into Joker, but we don't really get much Joker in the Joker movie. Arthur Fleck also is pretty much way too skinny to actually kick somebody's ass. And one thing that was super unrealistic is when he took down the big guy and killed him with a pair of scissors, because I just don't think he would have possessed the physical strength to take down a guy who's about 2.5 times bigger than he is. And frankly, I don't think he had the physical strength to go toe-to-toe with Batman the way that Heath Ledger's Joker did. So I guess if we were trying to link this movie in with Dark Knight, what would have had to happen is that he would have become Joker, and then he would have had to have spent maybe a decade or so lifting weights and eating meat to get to the point where he could actually go toe-to-toe with Batman. There's something compelling about Arthur's transformation, however, and I think that redeems a lot of the slow pacing and some of the more boring aspects of the movie. You won't really enjoy it a lot while you're watching, but at the end it will feel somewhat satisfying, if that makes sense. And while I do love the message of this movie all the way around, and the message is definitely a positive one that people need to hear, it does come off as a little preachy. And again, I hate to say that as someone who agrees with the message, but I like to be an honest broker. And I think that it might be a little better if the message were a bit subtler when it comes to both Arthur's bisexualism and the general messaging that is there about mental health. Joker is most likely not the best movie of 2019, but it is easily and by far the most important. No other movie has the weight or gravity of this film, at least this year. In 10 years, this movie will be required viewing for Republican families and clubs like the College Republicans, but I think the general public will have largely moved on. Sure, fans of the DC universe and fans of the Batman universe will still watch it as part of their learning the backstory of all of the various characters, so it will have that afterlife as well, but mostly it's just going to go down as a conservative classic like Ghostbusters or something of that nature. The movie's conservative credentials are nearly impeccable, but it simply isn't on the same level as Aquaman, which is the ultimate conservative masterpiece, because it simply isn't as good of a movie. Aquaman, of course, featured Arthur Curry, whereas Joker features Arthur Fletch, and it's very clear that Arthur Curry, as he is in Aquaman, still reigns king of the conservative films.